According to multiple swirling reports, nothing official from the Browns yet, of course, Shedeur Sanders has been told he's no longer part of the active roster moving forward. No clarification. No transparency. Just gone. And who better to blow the whistle on this absolute chaos than Stephen A. Smith, who went live and did not hold back. His exact words? This is not just tone deaf. This is sabotage. And honestly, he's not wrong.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Because let's take a step back and really look at what's happening here. Just a few weeks ago, Shedeur was making noise at training camp. We're talking crisp throws, elite decision-making, leadership that had veterans nodding in approval. He wasn't just holding his own, he was outperforming expectations. Practice tape was circulating. Coaches were praising his poise. Teammates were talking about his it factor. And now all of a sudden he's just out? No injury. No behavioral issues. No performance drop-off. Just radio silence and a sudden removal. Make it make sense. Stephen A. called it what it is, a power play. A franchise scrambling to preserve an outdated quarterback pecking order, terrified of what it might mean to hand the keys to a young black QB who already has a bigger brand than half the team combined. Because let's be honest, this isn't just about football anymore. This is about control. Shedeur Sanders came into the league with pedigree, presence, and let's be real, pressure. Son of Dion. Face of a movement. A college phenom with NFL-ready polish. And that made certain people uncomfortable. Because he didn't walk in with his head down, begging for crumbs. He walked in like he belonged. And in the NFL, especially in Cleveland, that's dangerous. We've seen this movie before. A young black quarterback gets too much media attention, too many fans on his side, too much power, before the team's ready to anoint him. And instead of embracing it, they push him out. And here's the kicker. He didn't even get a fair shot. Stephen A. made that point loud and clear. Shedeur wasn't given meaningful first-team reps. He wasn't allowed to compete in any real way for the starting job. The Browns spent more time managing the optics than managing the talent. And when the pressure started mounting, when jersey sales surged, when analysts started asking why he was still on the bench, what did the Browns do? They cut the problem. Except the problem wasn't Shedeur. The problem was the organization's inability to develop young talent without politics getting in the way. And the worst part? They did it under the radar. No press conference. No real explanation. Just a quiet backdoor exit, hoping the media storm would pass. Well, it won't. Because fans are already flooding social media with support. Other players are speaking out. And you better believe every team in the league just got a wake-up call. Shedeur Sanders isn't a project. He's not a distraction. He's a quarterback with star potential, and the Browns might have just fumbled the bag of the decade. So here we are. The Cleveland Browns are once again in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Stephen A. is on fire. Shedeur is trending. And the franchise? Right back where it always seems to land. On the wrong side of history. So what do you think? Was this an intentional move to silence a rising star? Or is there something deeper happening behind closed doors? Drop a comment below. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. Because this Shedeur story? It's far from over. The news of Shedeur Sanders reportedly being removed from the Browns' active roster is more than a headline. It's a flashing red siren for everything wrong with the politics of the NFL quarterback machine. And now that Stephen A. has put the spotlight on it, the entire sports world is finally catching up to what some of us have been saying for weeks. This was never about performance. Let's be real, Shedeur's preseason and training camp numbers weren't just good for a rookie. They were legit. His mechanics were sharp. His timing was NFL ready. His command of the offense had even the most skeptical vets nodding in approval. And yet, somehow he's the one getting pushed out? You don't need an advanced scouting degree to see what's happening here. Because when you line up all the receipts, the marketing, the production, the locker room buzz, the fan excitement, and still see a young quarterback get iced out, there's only one conclusion left to draw. This wasn't a football decision. This was a franchise control move. And guess what? It's not the first time we've seen this play out. Let's take a little trip down memory lane. Remember Tyrod Taylor getting mysteriously benched mid-game so a rookie could get a look? Or how about Justin Fields being framed as not ready, while guys with worse passing stats were handed the playbook like candy? And don't even get me started on the double standards when it comes to media coverage. One bad game from a young black quarterback and suddenly he's immature, not ready, or needs to sit and learn. But a 3-pick meltdown from a hyped-up white prospect? That's just growing pains. See the pattern? This isn't about game film. It's about gatekeeping. Shedeur Sanders walked into the NFL with the audacity to believe he could compete immediately, and worse, the talent to back it up. That alone was enough to shake the table. But then he added something most young QBs don't bring: a platform. He's got a national brand, a Nike deal, a social following bigger than most franchises. His family? Media savvy, vocal, connected. His father is Coach Prime, for crying out loud. And what do NFL front offices fear more than a confident young player? A confident young player they can't control. Shedeur didn't come in looking to learn the ropes in silence. He came to play, to lead, to bring swagger and substance to a team that's been running on fumes and excuses for years. And instead of recognizing that as an asset, the Browns saw a threat. So they did what scared franchises do. They shut it down before it could grow. But here's the thing Cleveland doesn't understand, and what Stephen A. does. This generation of athletes? They don't fade away. They go where they're wanted. They build elsewhere. They win elsewhere. And if the Browns thought quietly cutting ties with Shedeur Sanders would make the problem disappear, they just created a whole new one. They made him a symbol. Because now, every young player watching from college programs and practice squads sees the writing on the wall. Play great. Say the right things. Still get sidelined. And if that's the game, then maybe it's time to stop playing by the old rules. Shedeur's been about more than football from the jump. He's done youth camps, community work, mentorship programs. He's not out here clubbing or tweeting nonsense. He's been business from day one. So when the Browns try to justify this move with a vague roster decision line, nobody's buying it. And let's be honest, it's not like the Browns are swimming in quarterback talent. This isn't Kansas City letting a young guy sit behind Mahomes. This is Cleveland, a franchise whose QB history reads like a bad reality show with weekly eliminations. So why wouldn't you give Shedeur a real shot? It's not because he's not ready. It's because you're not. And let's talk about the impact of this on Shedeur himself, because here's what's not being said enough. This is a young man who just overcame a serious oblique injury, worked his way back in silence, kept his head down, put the team first, and was still shown the door. What does that tell the locker room? That performance doesn't matter? That brand power is a liability? That merit takes a backseat to politics? These are the cracks that split teams in half. And you can bet there are players in that building, vets, rookies, staff, who are questioning everything right now. Because if Shedeur can do everything right and still get booted, what does that say about anyone else's job security? It's a culture issue. It's a leadership issue. And it's a Browns issue. Stephen A. even called out the league at large, and he was right to do it. Because this isn't just a Cleveland problem, it's an NFL problem. The system is broken when talent gets benched for politics, when brands get punished, and when silence is rewarded more than skill. But here's the poetic part. This isn't the end of Shedeur Sanders. It's the start of his era. Because now, he's untethered. Free to go to a team that actually wants to win. Free to step into a system that values what he brings. Free to play with a chip the size of an NFL stadium on his shoulder. And don't think for a second that other teams aren't watching. Atlanta could use the fire. Vegas could use the headlines. Even Dallas, if they're bold enough, might see the future before it's too late. Because wherever Shedeur lands next, that fan base is coming with him. This isn't a guy who blends in. He creates momentum, creates conversation, creates change. And the team that bets on him next, they won't just get a quarterback. They'll get a movement. So to the Browns, congratulations. You didn't just lose a player. You lost the plot. And to Shedeur, keep pushing. Because the story they're trying to bury is the same one that's about to make you a star. We haven't even scratched the surface yet. Because what happened to Shedeur Sanders isn't just a one-off. It's not just a bad decision or tough roster cut. No. What's happening is the NFL's oldest fear wrapped in modern packaging, and it's threatening to blow up the entire system. Let's talk real. The idea of a quarterback being more than just a player, having influence, a voice, a brand that operates outside of the team's PR machine, that's the league's worst nightmare. Because for decades, NFL front offices have relied on silence, control, a chain of command where players are expected to wait their turn, smile at the mic, and never, ever make the suits uncomfortable. Quarterbacks, especially, are supposed to be the clean-cut, sponsor-friendly face of the franchise, but only if they play the game the right way. And you already know what that means. It means no flashy chains. No social media empire. No family that's louder and more media savvy than the team itself. And definitely no swagger unless it's been pre-approved by the owner and filtered through the league office. Shedeur Sanders? He broke all those rules on day one. And that's why he was never going to be safe in a place like Cleveland. Let's just say the quiet part out loud. The Browns were never ready for him. They were never prepared to handle a player who brought not just hype, but influence. Who changed how young fans saw the franchise. Who had more online engagement than their own official accounts. Who kids actually cared about. And look, we're not talking about hype with no substance. This isn't some TikTok QB with no tape. Shedeur has been balling. He's disciplined. He's coachable. He studies the playbook like it's a final exam. This isn't style over substance. It's substance with style. And apparently that was too much for the Browns to handle. And here's the thing that's really burning people up. This didn't need to happen. This didn't have to turn into a circus. The Browns could have slowly integrated him into the offense. Given him goal line packages. Let him run the scout team like a leader. Let him grow. But they didn't. They chose to bury him. No media access. No spotlight. No real opportunity. And then when that wasn't enough to quiet the noise, they cut him out altogether. Like he was the problem. As if the quarterback room hasn't been a dumpster fire for 20 years. As if the fans haven't watched this team burn through more passers than iPhones. As if keeping Shedeur off the field was somehow going to protect them from criticism. Let's be crystal clear. This isn't just a football misstep. It's a generational misread. Because this league is changing. Fast. The new wave of quarterbacks? They aren't just athletes, they're entities. They come with teams, with media brands, with nil money and millions of followers. They're not waiting around for a local reporter to ask permission to be interesting. And Shedeur? He's the prototype. Self-aware. Media-trained. Smart as hell. Already knows how to handle pressure. And oh yeah, he can sling it. You want to keep that guy in the building. You don't ghost him and hope it blows over. Because here's what's happening now. The rest of the league is circling. They see the headlines. They see the clip of Stephen A. going nuclear. They see the Browns stumbling through a non-answer while half the locker room side-eyes the front office. And you can bet there are GMs right now sending that just checking in text to Shedeur's agent. Because every smart team in the league knows this. If you're the first one to give Shedeur Sanders a real shot, like a real system with designed reads, talented weapons, and most importantly organizational trust, you're not just getting a QB. You're getting a rebrand. You're getting an identity. You're getting a fan base young fans actually care about. And that's worth gold. Look at what Dion did for Colorado. He took a forgotten, broken football program and turned it into must-see TV. People who haven't watched a college game in years were suddenly tuning in, wearing Buffs merch, staying up for post-game pressers. Why? Because they believed in the story. And Shedeur? He's that story now. The underdog with the big name who's still fighting to earn it. The quiet killer with the accuracy and presence of a 10-year vet. The guy who kept his mouth shut while the league played politics with his future. He's the one fans will rally behind. And that's what makes this Browns debacle even more frustrating. Because they had the story. They had the player. They had the next face of their franchise. And they let it slip through their fingers because, what? Ego? Control? Fear? What are they gonna do now? Roll out another retread? Put their trust in a system that hasn't worked since the early 2000s? Good luck selling that to fans in November. The worst part? You can feel it, deep down they know they messed up. You see it in the silence. In the weird, vague statements. In the way the coaching staff dodges questions like they're allergic to accountability. And maybe this is what has to happen for change to come. Maybe Shedeur getting cut, unfairly, unceremoniously, is what finally forces the league to face what it's been avoiding. That this new generation of quarterbacks isn't going to play by the old rules. That talent and influence can coexist. That a black quarterback with a brand isn't a threat, it's the future. So what happens next? Well, for Shedeur, the sky's the limit. He'll land somewhere. And that team, whoever they are, they just found their cornerstone. As for the Browns, they'll keep scrambling for answers. Keep wondering why their locker room feels fractured. Why their fans are fed up. Why they can't seem to get the quarterback position right, no matter how much money or draft capital they throw at it. Here's the truth they don't want to admit. They had the answer. They just didn't have the guts to use it. So let's all keep watching. Because this isn't over. Not even close. The moment Shedeur steps onto another field in another jersey under brighter lights, that's when we'll know. That's when we'll see who really fumbled the bag. And when that first touchdown hits and the crowd roars, and the cameras catch that calm, ice-cold stare behind his visor, Cleveland's going to feel it. Not just the pain of losing a star, but the sting of knowing they never even gave him the chance. Let's peel back one more layer of this drama, because what's really happening here with Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns is bigger than football. This story is no longer just about who gets the reps or who starts on Sunday. This is about the quiet war happening inside locker rooms all over the NFL, a battle between the old-school guard and the new-era athlete. You see, the NFL is evolving whether some franchises like it or not. We're living in the era of player empowerment, of athletes as CEOs, of quarterbacks with their own media arms and marketing teams who aren't afraid to speak up, speak out, and build their brand in real time. And Shedeur Sanders? He walked into the league as the embodiment of that movement. But Cleveland? Cleveland's operating like it's still 1998. The Browns didn't just mismanage a quarterback prospect. They mishandled a cultural opportunity. Here was a chance to show the league that they could be progressive, that they could lead in the era of the athlete-brand hybrid. But instead they panicked. They treated Shedeur like a PR liability instead of a PR goldmine. Let's put it like this. Imagine if the Miami Dolphins had handled Tua the same way. Imagine if Baltimore had benched Lamar just because he had too much personality. Imagine if Philly never trusted Jalen Hurts to take over. These teams leaned into the uniqueness of their quarterbacks. They adapted. They evolved. Cleveland? They flinched. And here's what's wild. They did it knowing full well what Shedeur brought to the table. They drafted him. They marketed him. They sold the jerseys, ran the interviews, did the brand rollout. They used his name to inject relevance into a team that hasn't been relevant since MySpace was hot. Then the second it got real, the moment he started turning heads and making noise, they pulled the plug. You can't have it both ways. You don't get to capitalize on the brand and then shut it down when it grows too fast for your comfort. You either build around it, or watch it torch you from the outside. And here's the twist nobody's talking about. This might be the best thing to ever happen to Shedeur Sanders. Seriously. Because now, he gets to pick. He gets to weigh his options, find the right fit, go somewhere that wants to invest in him as a quarterback and a face of the franchise. The Browns just did the NFL a favor. They took the pressure off every other team. They blew themselves up publicly, so now another organization can step in and be the hero. This isn't a fall from grace. This is a soft reset. And let's be honest, the Browns weren't equipped to handle what Shedeur is about to become anyway. They weren't ready for prime time. They weren't ready for the lights. They weren't ready for the ESPN specials and the sneaker drops and the post-game Instagram lives with Dion in the background dropping gems. They wanted quiet. They wanted compliance. They wanted someone who would stay small. That's not who Shedeur is. So now he moves on. And wherever he goes next, that franchise better be ready to run with him, not run from him. Because the spotlight is coming either way. Might as well win some games while you're in it. And to Cleveland? Good luck explaining this one. Because 10 years from now, when Shedeur is lighting it up for someone else, hosting playoff games and doing press tours with Pat McAfee and Travis Scott, the Browns are going to have to sit there and answer for it. Again. They're going to have to explain why they let go of the most exciting player to wear their colors since forever. Why they turned a potential franchise savior into a cautionary tale. And the answer won't be football. It never was. It'll be fear. And fear never wins championships. What happened between Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns? It's not just about football anymore. It's a generational clash, a brand identity crisis, and a front-row look at how the NFL still hasn't caught up with the moment we're living in. Because let's be real, Shedeur Sanders is not just a quarterback. He's a movement. A symbol of this new era where players don't just perform on Sundays, they own the week. They're building businesses, controlling their image, crafting narratives in real time. They don't wait for the media to tell their story, they are the media. And that scares teams like Cleveland. Because for all the buzzwords franchises love to throw around, culture, innovation, leadership, they still cling to old-school power structures. The kind where players are supposed to wait their turn, shrink themselves down, and earn the right to be visible. Shedeur did all that. And still got sidelined. So now we're watching a player who should be the face of the future become a casualty of an outdated system that punishes you for shining too bright, too fast. And you better believe players around the league are taking notes. You think this won't impact free agency down the line? You think other young QBs won't be thinking twice about where they sign or who they trust? Shedeur may not be throwing passes for the Browns next week, but he's already thrown a wrench into the NFL's comfort zone. And that's more dangerous than any spiral he could toss on 3rd and long. So the question now isn't whether Shedeur will bounce back. That's guaranteed. The real question is, which team is smart enough to catch him before the rest of the league wakes up? Think about it. He had the game, sharp footwork, fast decision-making, ice-cold presence under pressure. He had the brand, deals, followers, media buzz, name recognition. And most importantly, he had the momentum. Everything was aligning for him to be the Browns' next big thing. And then, suddenly he was out? Not because he fumbled. Not because he tanked in practice. Not because of some locker room scandal. Because he was rising too fast. Franchises like Cleveland don't know how to handle that. They've built their entire identity around struggle. Around rebuilding. Around forcing players into a slow-burn development arc that they control every step of. When someone like Shedeur shows up and accelerates the process, the system glitches. They want a quarterback they can mold, not one who walks in already understanding his worth. Already leading. Already moving the needle. And that's the part they'll regret. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't going away. He's not going to disappear into the shadows because one team couldn't handle the pressure of developing a star. He'll find a new home, probably a smarter, more adaptable franchise, and when he does, it's game on. So let this be a warning shot to every team watching this unfold. If you're scared of talent, swag, and leadership coming in one package, you're already 2 steps behind. Because the next team that embraces Shedeur's full potential, they won't just be getting a quarterback. They'll be getting a revolution.